Hunters, the goal in this game is to get to Timemark 7 to unlock all of the content that you're going to need in order to get yourself ready to hit the true endgame. But how do you get there in the most efficient and the fastest way possible? We're going to talk about some of the gearing strategies that I used this season in order to get my character set up to fly through anything in Timemark 7 and get yourself set up to start your farming so you can upgrade and get the best gear. Now, we're going to start with how we're going to upgrade your gear, what affixes you want to put on, and then how to determine what is going to give you the most damage. We're going to start with some of the lower level gear. Now, if you look down here, the item level is going to be below the required level. So this will be the required level that your character needs, and then this will be the level that it's going to be your item level. Now, the item level is very important in this game. The item level is actually going to unlock specific affixes and different things that will allow you to get stronger, survive longer. And how you can figure that out is by clicking the little anvil down here. When you pull this up, if we were to go over to your advanced affixes here, and then you were to click on one of these, if we were to click on something down at the bottom here, you'll see that this will require level 76 and this will require level 82. That is specifically to your item level, not to your character level. Those affixes will get bigger and stronger the higher that you go up in these different item levels. So that's why you really want to work on getting yourself into those higher level time marks so that you can get the better gear with the better stats on it. So how do you figure out what your stats are that you're going to need? Well, if you come into your skill here, your skill will dictate the spells and the abilities that you're going to need on your gear. So this, when I click on it here, this is a strength and an intelligence main ability. So that means I want things that will increase strength and intelligence because those are going to actually be incredibly strong for increasing your damage. This is also a spell. So if I want to do something like increasing my attack speed, I don't actually want attack speed, I want cast speed because I'm going to be using a spell. So if we were to look at our weapons here, our weapons are specifically designed around casting. We also have strength, we have intelligence, we have spell damage, and we have elemental damage because we're going to be using fire. So we have built our character around this by hitting very specific affixes that we want it to have. Now, not only do your affixes increase as you get higher level gear, but you're going to start seeing something called energy. Now, you do get energy from the main campaign, but energy is incredibly important. Energy, if you click on this little circle over here, this is going to show all the energy that is dedicated to all of your active skills. Now, this is really great because you can add in additional points of support for your abilities here. Now, the more energy you have, the more that you can add in. That all is really going to come from your gear. So you can also increase this. When you find your gear, it's not always going to be maxed. You can see on my weapon here, my weapon has 34 energy. This one has 51. If you come over to mod here and then you open this up and you go to gear empowerment, I'm going to put my equipped weapon that has 34 on in the slot here. Now I have to have the materials in order to re-roll this, so you'll have to get those as you start to farm. You'll get quite a bit of them, so they just kind of come naturally. When you re-roll, it's going to be completely random. You want to get as close to that max as you possibly can, not a 1. So you just keep on re-rolling until you get something that's going to be acceptable for wherever your gear is at. Now, as you saw, I have quite a lot in mine, so I don't really need this. So I'm going to stick with 46 here, and that's a really important part of gearing up your character because it's going to affect how you build your skills. So now let's say we want to build a piece of gear, and we want to make ourselves defensive because you can't ignore the defenses. If you can't stay alive, then you're really not going to be able to kill anything, and monsters will be spawning on top of you all the time. So we're going to open this back up again. On the very bottom here, most of your suffixes, and these are going to be your prefixes, your suffixes will have the ability to give you damage reduction in the terms of resistances. And then a lot of your prefixes will have things like evasion. It will also have things like max life. And we could have things like energy shield. So for me, all of the gear that I've built into my energy shield. So that will allow me to have additional life that will regenerate itself without having to use a healing spell or anything like that. So my direction for making sure that my character could stay alive was energy shield, and then making sure that you build your resistances. So you can check your survival stats here, and then you can see how much resistances you have. So my fire resistance is a little bit low. So if I was going to build a ring, then maybe something that I wanted to look at was going to be my fire resistance, or the piece of gear that I'm wearing. If I was to come back over here, because it's only level 73, this is going to be something that I want to look for to replace. Now I can either find something on the trade house, or you can find something that will drop, but I can come down to my fire resistance here, and I can see that I can actually go down to a tier 4. I have a tier 5. The crafting materials that you need are going to be down here on the bottom, and your success rate is going to be 100%. You're just going to keep on crafting until you were to find the one that you want. This will be the affix down here on the bottom that will replace it. It correlates right to the bottom here. So you can craft again and hope that you get your tier 4, which I did. And as you can see, my survival rate is going to go up by just a little bit, and my fire resistance has increased. If we were to look at some of the other pieces of gear in terms of the resistances, you see this is at up to 19%, where my belt here, because it's a lower piece, only goes to 11. So upgrading your gear is going to be incredibly important for increasing your affixes that are going to be on your gear. You also get more base affix like energy shield here. So what are some of the mistakes that I made during my first run through in this season? Was spending a little bit too much time on earlier pieces of gear when I was doing enough damage. Now, if you have gone through and you've just finished the campaign, you're going to be faced with your time marks here. These stages you're going to have to clear up to 8 times for this one, which means that you're going to be doing quite a lot of them. And as you go through each of your time marks, you're going to have to do more and more. So if you start off at time mark 1, you're only going to have to do just a couple of them in order to unlock the boss and then move on to the next time mark. So during those phases, you don't actually have to spend time upgrading your gear if you have enough damage. If you're flying through those, don't waste the crafting materials to make your gear better. Just click on one affix and then add it. You just bring up your gear, you're going to pull this open, you see you have an empty affix, you click on it once, and then whatever it lands on, you're just going to confirm. It will give you some sort of buff to whatever stat that it lands on. It'll give you that boost to get you into the next zone. And then when you hit that next zone, you're going to replace a lot of that gear because you can see the affixes are going to go up. Only once you get into time mark 7, that's when you really want to start focusing on the higher tier stats here. So if you can see my belt I need to replace, so I haven't actually started focusing on any of these. They're all tier 4. But for things like these rings here, I have some tier 2s. These are a lot of tier 2s and tier 3s. I started focusing on this because this will start pushing me into the higher ranks of your time marks here. So, and then the goal eventually is to get yourself into your time mark 8 and your time mark 8 profound. So as you're going through and as you're doing your gearing, make sure that it is really important that you just skip through the early stages if you have enough damage. If you don't have enough damage and enough survivability, then you're going to want to work on building your character. So that main stat is very important. Make sure you focus on whatever your main skill shows, whether it's your strength, whether it's your intelligence, your agility, and that's going to change based on whatever you pick. So if you pick this one here, this is only intelligence. You won't really get much out of any of the other ones. Learn your character, look at your main skill, and then you're going to upgrade your gear based on what you've chosen for your survivability, whether it's armor, max life, evasion rating, your energy shield, and then you're going to build your damage around all of your main abilities here. The next thing we're going to talk about is going to be legendaries. During the leveling process, I basically had full legendaries. It was the fastest way for me to increase my damage. Once I got done with the campaign, I continued to use those legendaries, and I found myself kind of falling behind. So once I figured out that actually replacing a lot of those legendaries with just your normal pieces of gear was actually way more beneficial than it was having any of these legendaries. Now, you do want to have a couple of them. Like, for example, for this build here, we're a spell burst build. So having this helmet on here is giving me additional spell burst, and it's giving me a lot more than I would have had with a regular helmet. So that's why I'm using this legendary still. But there's only going to be so many different legendaries that you're going to need. Now, learning about your build and learning about your class is going to be very important. And if you need to, there's a really great tool here in the game. You can come over to the pro builds here. You can go to the quick builds, and then you can find a whole slew of builds here. Now, I'll have my build code in the description of this video because there's a lot of different great ways to see progression. You can find your super endgame builds. You can find a lot of progression builds. Not all of them are going to be super strong. And you'll be able to click on the build here, and then you can see what skills and what abilities have been put in. You can actually take a look at the gear. So this way it gives you a sense of, okay, this is working for this person. Maybe that'll work for me. So I'm going to try that out. So make sure you take advantage of it. You come right over here to the little menu over here. You go to the pro builds. This is a great way to learn, even if you don't copy the build. Now you can actually apply the build to your overlay. If you were to click on this here, there's a way that you can do it. You can actually come back over here, and I'll just apply my own here. We can go back to your pro builds. You can go to your quick builds. You can enter a build code here. And if you enter the build code, that will show you the build, and then you can apply all. This will allow you to put the build on, and it has an overlay so you can see where the gear is and what you're going to need for that build. So it's a very cool option that they put into the game here. So make sure you take advantage of that. Now, there's a lot more to gearing in this game, but this is just a basic overview. If you guys have any really great tips, make sure you leave them in the comments so that anybody that gets to watch this, we can add all of those great tips to the next video, and you can maybe see your comment highlighted in the video. That's all I got for you today. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, make sure you share it with your friends. Thank you everybody for watching.
I'm live every night. I'd love it if you stopped by, said hi, theory crafted with me. Catch you on the clip side.